So welcome to the July 2021 CASE broadcast. As we have often said before, CASE stands for Connecting and Supporting Entrepreneurs. I hope you spotted the acronym there. We run mastermind groups, monthly workshops, and this monthly broadcast, unedited on video and audio, where we want to give you, the listener, some valuable input to help you on your journey. So it's hello from me, Patrick Twitchett.
And it's a very big hello from me, Melvin Manning.
And it's a hello from
Bharat Kanodia. How are you guys? Patrick, Melvin, it was great to see you again.
Lovely to have you here, Bharat.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Nice
good to have some international flavour to our broadcast.
Indeed, it's our first international CASE broadcast. And where are you speaking to us from today, Bharat?
I am in the San Francisco area.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So there we go. So our first ever international. So I will ask all our listeners to do as we normally do. Listen out, listen up, and listen in. Very good. So I'd like, Bharat, I always ask our guests to introduce themselves because you know how to do that very eloquently. So please introduce yourself to our listeners today, please.
Oh, sure. I am a appraiser, or as in the UK, you might call it a valuer. I have valued all kinds of assets in the world, including real estate, infrastructure, companies, investments for private equity and venture capital, you name it. Some of the most unique assets I have valued include things like the Golden Gate Bridge, Uber, Airbnb, Grand Central Station. Um, the list is big. So
Wow.
I appreciate you having me, Patrick.
And impressive, let me tell you, very impressive.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So I know you wanted to share and impart some of your wisdom to us today, and if we'd like to sort of try and break it up into a few sections as we go through, I know we discussed some topics. So where would you like to start us off, please, Bharat?
Well, why don't we start with why folks need evaluation many a times. So, Patrick, nobody wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to call my valuer Bharat today. I don't get those kind of phone calls. People call me if they have a need for getting evaluation done, and that need could be um, they are making some kind of a deal, right? They're buying something or selling a business or buying a minority owner or majority owner in a company. Or they have a tax bill and they need to figure out how much taxes to pay, so they need evaluation. Or they have an accounting need. They invested $100 in something and they need to know what that $100 is worth today. Or they need it for insurance purposes, so the insurance company can collect enough premium. So there really are only four needs why anybody needs evaluation. And I always tell people that you can put a value on anything. Um, as long as you have the information about that asset. So you can put a value on painting or a house or a business or a patent or a trademark or a brand, what have you. Anything you can think of, you can put a value on.
Interesting. I mean, and would that be your forte to work with all those different fields, or do you have a specific that is your main focal point?
Great question, Melvin. So most people in my business, Melvin, they tend to focus on one type of an asset or one type of evaluation.
Mm.
I'm one of the few valuers who don't subscribe to that notion.
All right.
I'm one of the few valuers who can value almost anything. Of course,
Hmm.
I don't value art or gems or jewelry or collectibles.
Yeah.
But if it's real estate, or if it's a business, or if it's classes of stock within the
Mm.
business, I can value that all.
Yes. That's interesting because obviously, we have over here people will try and realize assets from vehicles. They might have the new Lamborghini four-wheel drive and they'll try and realize some capital against that, or they'll sell it in order to fund a business acquisition or a business investment. So, and I know you have it over there because I watch a lot of the shows. So your speciality, just for our listeners and those that will watch this thereafter, is more about the value of, or the real value of a business, would
That
you
is
say?
correct. That is correct. So so I have developed a YouTube channel
Uh-huh.
where I educate people and my viewers on what a business might be worth.
Yeah.
And generally, the trends and the rules of thumb and the tips and tricks that I share on my channel, they are valid across the board.
Mm. Is this a
Um,
subscription channel or is this a free channel?
it's a free channel. It's on YouTube. It's called What's It Worth. So if you put in my name or just put in What's It Worth on YouTube, it'll
Yeah,
pop up.
say it one more time, third time lucky.
Uh, What's
What's
It
it
Worth?
worth? What's it worth? Absolutely. Let's get in there and let's go and have a look at it.
Yeah. Um, and I started in August, and it's been actually a lot of fun.
Perfect.
I write the content myself, and I have a team behind me, and that helps me produce it. So I'm having fun with it. And
Superb.
what's better than educating people about what you do?
And then let's just get the definitive question out of the way. A lot of this will translate into the UK, whatever goes on locally to you. It does translate across the oceans.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
99% of it will translate. Of course,
Yeah.
some of the nomenclature, might be a little different.
Yeah.
Um, for example, how we spell color versus how you spell color,
Yeah.
right? So the nuances might be a little different, but 99% of it will translate.
Well, it's lucky.
Um,
It's lucky I can't spell, so we're okay there.
Well, I think it's you say
well,
potato.
according to most Englishmen, Americans can't spell either. So
Yes. Listen, you renamed the bagel when it's really a bagel. So listen, I got enough to worry about.
And again, Barrett, I know we've discussed this in a conversation that when people are planning a business and building a business plan, you should always plan with the end goal in mind,
Yeah.
and that end goal should be to sell the business. Even if we're not looking to sell the business, it's got to be in that plan so we know there's a position to aim to. It isn't there?
most definitely, because if the business, basically what you're trying to say here is by keeping that plan in mind, you're making the business transferable. And by making the business easily transferable, you're not putting all the responsibilities on yourself. And you're not really creating a job for yourself or the next owner. You truly are creating a business. So the analogy that I give is you're not developing a pull cart where you have to pull it up and really literally push with all your mighty. Instead, you're trying to build a Vespa or a car where somebody can get in a driver's seat, hit the ignition, turn on the gear, and move forward.
Mm.
There's a big difference
Mm.
between those two.
So will you get involved with a young business at a very early stage and start to create this plan?
Um,
Or do you come in later on?
Usually, I get involved Less so in the beginning and more so towards the end. In the beginning, people think their business has a lot of value. Oh my God, I have this amazing idea and it's worth $2 million. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to tell you. But they think their idea is worth so much. No idea is worth anything. There are so many ideas out there. There's nobody to execute. So idea is worth nothing unless it's executed properly. It's kind of like in the movie business, right? I mean, there are so many, literally millions of scripts that are circulating through directors and producers and
Yeah,
production companies,
yeah,
but they don't have any value. Nobody's going to pay you a dime for them unless it is made into a movie.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, I understand that.
Yeah, that makes perfectly good sense. And I love your analogy there about business, and I think that makes me reflect on, and I'm sure you've heard of this gentleman in the US, Robert Kiyosaki.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And I know he speaks about the cash flow quadrant, and he says, if you're a real business owner, the business can function really without you being there. And is that where you're sort of placing it? Did you see sort of, are you quite eye to eye with him on that?
Very much, very much. You should be able to run a business on cruise control or autopilot, if you will. Now, yes, it cannot run 100% on cruise control, right? Even when you drive a car, you hit the cruise button. Well, it's not like the thing is driving itself. It's not a Tesla, right? Even Tesla, you got to be sitting there and you got to be vigilant. So you still have to pay attention. So no business can run 100% on autopilot, but how close can you get to that 100%? Can you get to 70%, 80%, 90%? And the closer and closer you get to getting that business to run 100% on autopilot, the higher the valuation.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And it's all about delegation, isn't it, in that sense?
It's all about delegation, or hiring the right people, or putting the right systems and processes in place.
Mm.
People are expensive, and people talk back. People quit. People can do stupid things. But many a time, systems and processes don't talk back, and many a times don't do stupid things. If it's done something wrong, it's likely human error. So first try to implement systems and processes in place wherever you can so you're not inundated with busy work. And once you can automate or put in the systems and processes wherever you can and you're still overwhelmed, then it might be time to maybe hire somebody. But before you hire somebody full time, always consider hiring somebody part time first so that you're not taking upon a liability of their paycheck on a monthly or a quarterly basis. You want to try to hire part time first and then see if you have enough volume or enough business, then you can take somebody on full time.
Okay, yeah. So building it up in stages, and I know a more ever popular thing these days is putting people in on a freelance basis, like a VPA, virtual personal assistants, is becoming very popular. There's no long-term commitment. You can pull them in, and if you haven't got any work tomorrow, then there's nothing for them to do.
Precisely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I get that, but I don't know how you. I know I've heard other business owners speak about hiring people as and saying whether that's part time or full time, but then for them it's almost a driver that they're committed to bringing in the revenue to maintain that individual. I see that as a bit more of a, there's a balance between that, and I think I don't like to put myself out too much in risk with loads of overhead. Um, but I know of business owners that have said that they've taken someone on, and then they know that they've got to meet that paycheck every month, and it's a driving force. It's like a motivator for them. To me, it's It's a bit of a risky way, but I know people that have done that and done that successfully. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, many a times it's not even a motivator, it's just an ego boost. Oh, I got so many people working for me. If you're in the army or the military, then yeah, it's cool because in military it's this kind of a structure. So the higher you are, you can say I got so many guys who are under me, right? In business, that's not how that works. In the business, the fewer people you have under you, the better. Unless you work for on a government job or you're working for a crazy large corporation where it doesn't really matter. So if you're working for Coca-Cola, yeah, where they have literally hundreds of thousands of employees, you can say, "Oh, I got, 20,000 employees who work for me." In a small business where you're starting out, you shouldn't be worrying about how many employees work for you. You should be worrying about how efficient your system is, your business is. And if your system or your business requires full-time or part-time employee, then that's fine. But don't just add them so that you can walk around at parties and tell people, I got 20 guys working for me.
Yeah, yeah, running lean, keeping it lean, because at the end of the day, it's and small businesses are more prone and vulnerable to fail in that sense, financially because of overhead, aren't they?
Very much. I mean, they have thin buffers.
Yeah,
In fact, I had lunch at a restaurant here in San Francisco on Sunday, and that restaurant was opened in 1919 in Chinatown. It was called the Chinatown Restaurant. Very innovative name. But given it was, opened in 1919, I'll let that slide. But they had great real estate. They owned the entire building, but the building was fairly dilapidated. I mean, it really seemed like the last time they renovated the place was when it was opened in 1919. Um, and I saw the service was okay, the food was okay, and it's just that the business had lost its energy over time. I think many times what happens is the owners, they rely on the business to sustain themselves and their families, and what that ends up doing, it takes out all the earnings away from the business, and once you do that, there's really nothing left to put the money back in the business to make it grow.
yeah,
And I have, if you have read about Andrew Carnegie,
yeah.
his big thing about growth was he took literally very little money out from the business. Of course, he had millions of dollars at that time 100 years ago that he didn't have to take much out, right? If he could take out just a nibble, that was enough for him. But he almost took no money out of the company. He just kept reinvesting that business money back into the business. And of course, it was the roaring 20s, and it was the whole industrial revolution. So everybody needed steel and iron, and so the company boomed.
Yeah.
So it's very important to make sure you keep watering and you keep replanting in your business, which means that keep putting money back into the business. Or sometimes what happens is if you keep putting the money back into the business and you're not investing in hard assets, then also your um, assets can vaporize overnight. So if you're investing all your money in marketing and your marketing isn't that good, well, guess what? All your earnings are gone. So
Yeah.
here maybe using the Robert Kiyosaki thought process that if the money gets excess in business, invest that into a hard asset for the business, maybe buy real estate or building or a car or a delivery vehicle or what have you, and use that asset to fund or energize or reinvigorate your business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I if you're just running lean like that, that's right. You're then really vulnerable. You've got nothing to fall back on. And again, getting finance and credit, you need to have those assets because the banks and anyone or any investors, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that security, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, very good. Very good. So, where do you want to take us next on our conversation, Barat?
I think let's talk about what kinds of business are most sought after or most valued or highly valued. And there are really two things that buyers are looking for in any business that they want to buy.
So, to those joining us today, just a quick breakaway from our discussion there, just to let you know that if you wanted to know more or be a part of the Case Mastermind community, all you need to do is follow the links in the notes below to our website to find out more. And I'll see you there, in case you didn't already know. And now let's go back to the discussion.
One is they're looking for recurring cash flow. They want consistent cash flow, recurring cash flow, whatever you want to call it. Basically, on a monthly basis, they are going to be getting so much amount, almost like a salary, if you will, but not a salary. It's an asset that you own. And second thing they're looking for is they don't want to do anything to get that cash flow. They want to sit on their butt and enjoy that pension. So the closer and closer you can bring your business to those two things where you get consistent cash flow and your business is running on autopilot to give you that cash flow, the higher your valuation. And that's why real estate assets are so sought after, because if you have rental income coming in from real estate assets, multifamily or a single family home, or maybe a hotel, right? So you are getting consistent cash flow and you don't have to do much to enjoy that cash flow. Now, with the hotel business, that doesn't really apply because you have to work hard to, you know, get cash flow from the hotel. But you get also higher cash flow in a hotel because the operating cost is higher.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I think that's why a lot of these online subscription models are, there's so many of them now. Yeah, I think classic examples here, Amazon Prime, the TV ones, the Netflix, and again, Disney now are jumping onto this, but it's a tiered system. Google is a typical example that the funnel there is almost free of charge. Well, it is free of charge, but then there's little tiny bits to add in. You can have an individual email address, and that's only £8 a month, and you can have this, and it just escalates, and it takes people up gradually. And I think that's why a lot of those are so successful because you'll join, I don't know, Amazon Prime. Oh, well, that's only whatever it is, £8 or £9 a month. And then, oh, well, how about Kindle as well? You can add that on, or Audible, they call it now, don't they? And add all these things in, and before you know it, you're spending 30, 50, £70 a month, aren't you?
At least. And investors or bankers or private equity firms, they love these kind of businesses because by paying eight, nine, $10 a month or pounds a month, you're not going to sweat it very much.
Yeah,
But that 8, 9 pounds a month adds up times millions of dollars, millions of people. And that is great cash flow. Netflix is great cash flow business because they get that money on a monthly recurring basis. Netflix has what, 70 million subscribers, I think, if I'm not wrong.
yes, that sounds about
So
right.
70 million subscribers times say $10, $12 a month, so that's $700 million a month guaranteed.
Yeah,
Right. Blockbuster had the same revenue model, right? Blockbuster didn't have the membership cost like Netflix, but there was really no option. Blockbuster bought out everybody. So whoever was a member would rent from Blockbuster once a month or twice a month. And that was their recurring revenue model. Viacom, the owner of Blockbuster, bought Blockbuster because it had this consistent revenue model so that they could pay off their debt. So what Viacom did, they just loaded Blockbuster with tons and tons of debt because they knew the banks would lend to Blockbuster, and they use that debt to finance other projects.
Right. Okay. And then, of course, I think Netflix was in the offering to Blockbuster, which they declined, wasn't it? I think famously.
That's what happens many a times, right? I mean, Google was offered to Yahoo and Yahoo declined. Pepsi was offered to Coke and Coke declined.
Yeah.
These sort
I
of
know
things happen all the time.
these things do happen. I was actually in the setup team when Blockbuster came to the UK and bought Ritz Video, which was a client of mine, and I was involved with the escalation of that.
Yeah.
And it lasted for decades. I did it for 28 years, working with Blockbuster and all the independent dealers. So I know that world well, and it does work if we can get that right. But from your point of view, for our viewers' point of view, for Case Mastermind's point of view, um, how does a simple entrepreneur who obviously has vision start to make, let's say, his planned journey to be able to talk to somebody like you? I'm curious to know that journey.
So, I guess I'm sorry, Melvin. I'm not understanding your question. What do you mean journey to get to talk to
Well,
somebody like me?
I'm 26 years old. Let's pretend. I know I don't look it, but let's pretend. I've just started into my new business. It happens to be a tech business. I've built my own software. I'm providing various office services to customers across the United Kingdom. I'm starting to get traction and what have you. All of a sudden, I'm finding that more and more money is coming into my bank account. The phone is starting to ring off the hook. I've employed one or two people to take the stress away. I've now got an accounts person. I'm on my journey. So basically, we've gone through all the setup. We've gone through getting into a market, establishing a marketplace. I'm now getting traction and I'm now getting repeat sales, and it's escalating and escalating and escalating. And I'm so in my business, I don't realize what's going on around me.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, you don't, as I said earlier, Melvin, and nobody wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to call my valuer Bharat today. So that 26-year-old probably has a need for getting evaluation done,
Mm.
unless they want some kind of a strategic consulting where they want to know, hey, how do I increase the value of my business? I can help them there. But outside of that, they probably need evaluation either for taxes or for insurance or for
Yeah,
accounting or for some kind of a deal.
sure.
And if they want to get a hold of me, they can always get a hold of me through my YouTube channel. As I said, what's it worth? There's an email
Mm.
there. They can reach out to me. And I do a lot of valuations in UK and Europe as well.
Okay.
But yeah, in general, if they're doing things right, they will hopefully get an offer from their competitor or from one of the leaders in their business. And if they get, one of those 200 million pounds offer, well, that's when they can call me and say, hey, is this 200 million pounds reasonable? And I can tell them yay or nay. That's a good problem to have.
It's a lovely problem to have. I mean, in my own businesses, I try and create a 5-year plan, and the exit strategy is to have it ready for sale at the end of the 5th year. But that's just because of my experiences of the past. Would you recommend that, or is it trended? Is it planned? Or some people do get lucky that they get they come across a nice bit of tech which they obviously protect, and it becomes immensely valuable.
Very much. So, if you're putting in assets and systems and processes in place, which makes the business transferable, easily transferable to a new buyer, that's what makes the business valuable.
I mean, you're
Um,
you're right on top of many of the dot-com millionaires where you are now.
That is correct.
Silicon Valley is 3 stones throw away from you. Now, these dot-com millionaires, I mean, 1 or 2 of them I've known, they're not even 15 years old yet. How do they know? How do they know? Because we read about it in the press, but how do we know?
Well, they get the right guidance, right? And
Yeah.
venture capitalists and private equity partners, they bring more than money to the table.
Yeah.
They bring their guidance, they bring their Rolodex, they bring their network to help you.
Yeah.
And once they are invested in your company, they're really invested in you.
Yes.
And it's to their benefit, long-term benefit, financially and spiritually and personally, to ensure that you are successful. And they're very good at growing companies.
Mm.
So, when they invest money in your company, more than money, they're investing themselves. So you want to always make sure you're giving enough piece of the pie to them to
Mm.
keep them interested. If you're going to give them 1%, well, that's not going to keep them interested, but you got to give them enough to keep them engaged.
Well, that's very important information there, Bharat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's gonna open a lot of people's naive eyes.
Yeah,
Because there is naivety out there.
if you see many of these shows like Shark Tank, I have a
Yeah.
episode coming
Yeah.
out on Shark Tank in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Ours is called Dragon's Den. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And in Australia, it's called Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And in that, they're always talking about, they're always this tussle back and forth. Oh, this much valuation, this much valuation.
Yeah.
It's stupid. So the valuation, the way they're working is the entrepreneur, the founder is thinking, okay, I want through 200,000 pounds. How much of my company am I going to give up for 200,000 pounds? So 200,000 pounds, I only want to give up a little bit of the company. Okay, I'm just going to say 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go to a dragon or a shark, they're going to say, yeah, I don't want 5% of your little company. It's not because it's your little company, it's because it doesn't tickle them. It's got to engage them, it's got to make them interested. They're not looking to run a company into perpetuity like a family business. They want a big payday after 3, 4, 5, 7 years. So you got to give them enough equity to keep them interested. And usually 10% is a starting point. Less than 10%, they're really not very interested unless you got a lot going on there.
Yeah, fascinating program though to let's say to give you a bit of an incentive or a little bit of a drive.
Yeah.
Or to get that greed. I mean, we want to take greed out of it, but to get that kind of atmospheric within your brain, thinking that, yeah, I can be like that.
Well, I think greed is good, as Warren Buffett says. No, not Gordon Gekko said.
Gordon
Right?
Gekko said that. Yeah,
Greed is good,
I
and I think greed is good to a point where you're not doing stupid things. As long as you're doing the right thing and running your business ethically, greed is good.
I agree. I quoted Gordon Gekko last week in a different podcast. And it was all about Sun Tzu, the art of war, where he used that as his premise on running his businesses.
Yeah.
Know who you're competing with, and know them better than they know themselves. But also make sure you know the answer to the question before you even ask the question.
Yeah, that's. I think all good politicians work on that. You're gonna ask a question of a minister in government. You'd better know. My granddad used to tell me, you better know the answer before you ask the question.
Or have the same answer to all the questions.
Correct. Yeah.
This is America. This is the greatest country in the world, and we love freedom. Well, that's the answer to all their questions, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Until somebody asks a proper question.
And even then, that's the answer.
So, Bharat, can I ask? Because obviously we've gone into an awful lot of interesting detail through this chat, but at what point do you like to come into a deal?
In the beginning, if somebody is making you an offer or if you're considering an offer, it's better to know what you're worth before you're walking into anything. So everything, negotiation or business deal is not rocket science. It's all about preparation. It's kind of like going into a pitch meeting or a sales meeting and not being prepared.
Hmm.
Negotiating is all about being prepared. You want
Yeah.
to know, as you said, you want to know the answers to the questions you're going to ask. So you want to know all the permutations and combinations.
Of
And
course.
doing evaluation before a deal or a transaction or any kind of negotiation tells you the ins and outs of your business. You get to
Mm.
see the good and the bad and the ugly. And then when you're sitting on the table, you can listen more because you've already done your homework. And then you hear their side of the story and see your business from their perspective.
Yeah.
And evaluation will help you understand that. Evaluation will help you understand your business from your potential buyer's perspective.
Okay. And yeah, the $6 million question, which interprets into any language. Now, somebody coming to work with you, how do the fees work?
In our business, the fees are flat. So I would love to charge as a percentage of the value, but we're not allowed to. It's unethical.
Mm.
So our fees are flat. So, for evaluation, depending on what we're valuing, our fees can vary anywhere from £2,000 to £50,000, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's a very wide range, usually for small businesses, right? And I'm talking businesses with revenue £10 million and down. Fees can be anywhere between £2,000 and £12,000
Sure.
per valuation.
And and would it be fair to say you work under an umbrella of something? Are you governed?
Um,
Is there compliance with what you do?
there is technically no compliance in the valuation world. But we all play by the rules. We have accreditations
Mm.
and education that we all need to get. And, all these accreditations have their own ethical standards. So we all
Yeah.
abide by those.
Yeah.
So with the accreditation that I have, I can do valuations globally. It doesn't matter. But then again, you still have to do the right thing, because if you don't do the right thing in valuation, you give somebody the wrong value, it can hurt people.
Oh yeah.
This is not funny money. This is real money out
Oh
of
yeah.
people's pockets. So
Yeah.
if somebody wrote a check for more than they should have, or if somebody received a check less than they should have gotten,
Mm.
you're hurting people.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. And obviously, we know there are tax implications on any of these situations once the purchase has been agreed. And I have read many articles where people try and massage where the capital goes to pay, obviously, a least amount of tax as they possibly can. And that's another art form, is it not?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I'm not a tax expert,
Mm.
but yeah, taxes are a big part of the business selling scenario.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the days of Panama are over, I know, because obviously they got caught. We can elaborate on that another time, Patrick. But offshore capital is a very dangerous game to play.
Uh,
Well, yeah, each time there is some kind of a loophole that is caught by the authorities,
Yeah.
it starts a new loophole.
Mm.
They
yeah.
fix one loophole, and something else opens up. So nature has its way of leveling
Mm.
itself out. People, as they said in Jurassic Park, life finds a way.
It does,
People find
yes.
a way.
Yeah, we do. It's
Yeah.
part of our inner being.
Yeah. And going back to the valuation, and trying to base this the analogy of a house, the price of a house, because a house is is an asset. And if we're going to buy or sell a house, we always get a valuation. To think that you're going to sell a business without a valuation is the same as some guy walking into your house and saying, "Do you know what, I'll give you £50,000 for this house," when it might be worth 200,000 and going, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds fair deal, you know, shaking hands, you wouldn't do it. But again, even if you value something like you value a house, it's only really worth what a person is willing to pay, is it not? And there's, so that's, again, that's, I assume that's where the negotiation comes in, is to what people are willing to pay for something and then what it's actually worth as a calculable figure, is it not?
Very much so. So you have to think about, instead of think about how much you want for your business, you have to think about from a buyer's perspective that, okay, how much can this person pay for my business? And the way you think about that is, you think of it is, if this person were to finance my business through the bank is going to ask for a 25% down collateral, money down. And then how much can he finance based on this cash flow? So if my business is giving, say, £10,000 a month in cash flow, how much mortgage payment can that £10,000 a month sustain? So once you back calculate that, you will get to know the value of your business instantly, because now you're thinking about your business from a buyer's perspective. So many a times when you go to buy a house, you don't say, I want to buy a house of £800,000 or $1 million, £1 million. Um, the bankers usually would ask you that, okay, how much mortgage payment do you want to afford? And then they back into the value of the house or the car based on the payment that you want to afford on a monthly basis.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes really good sense, definitely. Okay, and I mean, I suppose like a rental property, you know, when you're working out how much you're paying for that, again, you're working out the mortgage payments, but you're offsetting that against the income from the property and seeing where that sits, aren't you? So it's got to be, you know, it's got to add up right, hasn't it?
Very much, very much.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And how can people actually increase the value of their business? What are the ways to do that?
So the best way to do, increase the value of the business is to convert your business model into recurring revenue. So if your business is based on taking 2% or 5% of sales of your customers, instead of taking a percentage of sales, you may want to reduce your cash flow a little bit and take a monthly fee, which is guaranteed. Now, once you have a monthly fee that's guaranteed, I understand you might be taking a cut on the cash flow that you might get, but it'll take your valuation from a 2x to a 10x. So even if you're taking a hit on the cash flow, you're increasing the valuation 5 times, because buyers cherish that cash flow. Buyers cherish the consistent cash flow. So even if your cash flow is less, but your cash flow is consistent, that's what's important. So when they say quality of earnings, that's what they meant. Quality of earnings is how consistent your earnings are. Buyers or investors don't want to see ad hoc earnings. They want to see a steady stream of growth and earnings.
Yeah, yeah. So it's stepping back, and this is something that we always talk about in case, you know, rather than spending time in your business, spending time on your business, and that's a thought process where you, I suppose, in essence, you've got to step back sometimes and look at it from a slightly different perspective and somebody else's perspective very often to change the system or the current system that you're working under. Because you're referring to there, you know, a lot of businesses, they start from zero every month, don't they? It's all purely transactional.
It very
Income.
much is. It very much is, and it shouldn't be. It should be based on a monthly recurring revenue basis.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose a good example of that is, uh, and there's companies here that implement this. British Gas, for example, rather than doing you a yearly boiler service, they actually sign you into a deal that you pay monthly for a subscription which covers your boiler service, but if other things go wrong with your plumbing, they'll come and fix that free of charge. It's converting it to a different way of looking at it, isn't it?
Very much so. Why do you think insurance companies have the biggest buildings in the world? Why do you
Yeah,
think the banks have the biggest buildings in the world?
yeah,
Why do you
yeah,
think universities have the most real estate assets in the world? They have consistent revenue.
yeah,
Simple. It's not rocket science. It takes time, yeah. But the reason the insurance companies have the biggest towers in the world, the banks have the biggest towers in the world, universities have the most land and the most assets and the most patents is because of consistent revenue. It doesn't matter. Kids are going to be sent to school no matter what. So they have consistent revenue always. During even COVID, yeah, kids are probably at home and doing remote learning, but universities and schools are getting their money.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Very
never
good.
going to change. I mean,
Never
you
gonna
could talk
change.
about churches and all sorts of religious entities
Churches.
that have got acres and acres and acres and acres of product all around the globe.
Why do you think there is a Sunday Mass?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not trying to make this into a religious discussion, but a Sunday Mass is basically a exhibition for the church. You go to church and you put in your money down. That's giving a donation to the church.
Yeah.
And churches, just like universities, don't pay any taxes. They're tax free.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know a few people
And
that
that's all religions, right? Temples, synagogues. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
there's no differentiation really.
yeah.
no, no. It's the best marketing in the world. I've
It's the
often had,
best. Religion and universities is the best business in the world.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you ever so much for sharing that with us today. What we what we need from you today is because everyone who leaves a review for us, we do like to read our reviews, and we like people to use the word of the month in there, Bharat. So, what would your word of the month be for this topic today?
Consistent cash flow.
Yeah,
Consistent cash flow.
that's a good phrase. Moving on swiftly.
Indeed.
It's that time of the broadcast again. It's that moment of intrigue for our viewers and our listeners.
It is, and of course, this month we're doing two broadcasts in July. This is our second one, and in our last one, Melvin brought a word to us. Can you remember what that word was, Melvin?
The last word. Now you're going to have to remind me, Patrick, because the frazzled brain's gone. Bharat's done my head in with lots of thinking now.
Well, and probably you've done too much talking again, as for normal.
Well, it's the disease that I carry.
So your word was gadzookery.
Gadzookery. Oh my God, that one. Yes. Well, that's all about things that certain people that are close to me occasionally say.
Is it, Melvin?
It is. It is.
Exactly, then.
It's to the point where there's cobwebs and dust all over the words. So have you any idea what gadzookery means, Patrick?
Melvin, as ever, I have to rely on your
Well,
interpretation.
I will tell you. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
It's the use of archaic words.
Okay. Well, give me an example of an archaic word.
An
Melvin.
archaic word? I don't have one, Patrick. I'm afraid you've caught me out there.
Well, I mean, that's you've been gadzooked then, Melvin.
I've been totally gadzooked. I found this word because I was thinking of you at the time, and I thought
Well, something
archaic.
archaic.
Say archaic. Hang on. Oh yes, gadzookery. An archaic word.
Okay.
So this is the new thing when we speak again is that occasionally we might get gadzooked.
Okay. So would the word the use of thee and thou be archaic.
Yes, it would be that. Well, that's just old English, isn't it?
Yeah. So does that come under that criteria, do you think?
It may do. It may do.
Oh, we're going to put this out to our listeners.
I think the listeners should actually send in their idea of an archaic word. I think that would be quite interesting. What might come in?
I think it might be. I think we'll get comments like the BBC. They're quite archaic.
I mean, if you Google archaic words, you will come up with, or you will see some very strange things, Patrick.
What do you mean?
Like Gardilou, or Puissant, or Sweven, or Pissmeyer, things like that. Pissmeyer. Piss, as in the very rude word.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, well, I've just Googled it and come up with betimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Good time or early, betimes. So
yeah. Twatting is a good one.
What is that? Hitting someone, is it?
To gossip, talk idly, and too much. I think I know someone like that.
Do you?
That's pretty where twat came from.
Melvin, as I always say, stop putting yourself down. I know.
Oh, where's Stephen Fry when you need him? He loves these words. This is his world.
Yes, I'm sure he's tuning in, listening, and he's obviously waiting.
Contumelious is another one I've got here. Scornful or arrogantly rude. Contumelious. I know someone like that as well. All these people I know that are derivatives of these words.
Yes.
There's some here I can't even pronounce, Patrick.
Very good. Okay, so we better move on now, because I am going to give us the word for the next.
Oh, now we're in trouble.
So I'm going to leave you with a word, which is malapropism. Now, I might have pronounced that wrong.
I have heard of that word.
Malapropism. Yes, I'll explain what that is next month, and I'm sure we can get some feedback on that one as well.
So have we got to wait till August for that one?
We have, yes. Great to disappoint.
Malapropism.
There.
I can't even say it, let alone spell it.
Indeed. So, and as going back to what we were saying earlier, we'd love to hear your feedback.
Yes.
All the case is all built around feedback from its members, feedback from the listeners, and we actually mould these broadcasts, our topics and subjects around the feedback that we receive. So if you're listening and you're sitting there whinging and complaining and saying these subjects are rubbish, well, it's your fault, because you haven't told us what you'd like to hear more about. Now, I think we need to finish, Melvin, so I will say a very warm and hearty goodbye from me.
And it's a very, very heartfelt and warm and British summertime au revoir from him.